End of the breastfeeding conversation. Of course, the first week of August is dedicated to breastfeeding across the world. Gladys, do you think that this milk bank rather that is being suggested will really help with here in Kenya, and more so probably even women from low-income areas?
Yes, the breast milk bank, first of all, is for people to understand, is where the mother who has enough milk can express milk and give it to be kept for a baby who will not have a mother. Maybe we are thinking of those babies who may die, those mothers may die.
Or they're sick, or they're on medication.
Sick, yes, and the mother is not able to breastfeed.
Right.
So that the baby can survive. So it is something that can work, just like the blood bank has worked. And it's something that we should take positively. It's not us who are taking the milk, it's a baby who has no other source of milk. So we think it can work as long as mothers can take it positively and know that they are saving a life. And also for us to make sure that every baby who is born is able to get the food they require, because that is what makes them survive. So it requires a lot of support from various actors so that we can to make it a reality. We've seen it work in other countries, South Africa, Brazil, and it's really amazing how a baby would have died just because there's no breast milk.
Can survive. All right. And the aspect of when breastfeeding, women sort of, the environment-wise, there are distractions. There's the phone, there's the TV. Probably Gladys and Zinzia are having a conversation as we are right now. What does the distraction do to that breastfeeding process when a mother is distracted?
When a mother is distracted and is focusing on something else other than the baby, then the baby is affected, as I said. The baby sees that the mother is not giving attention. The other thing is that the mother may miss to concentrate on that, because the breast is produced after the mother thinks about it and thinks about it positively. So it's good always the mother to concentrate on that, take a little time, focus on the breastfeeding with the baby, and then other things can come later.
All right.
So it's not good to, if you think you can be distracted, don't breastfeed when you're just watching TV or talking to other people. The baby requires you. And even for you to be ready to breastfeed, you need to concentrate on it.
So James, there's this stereotype, and it's quite a hot debate, should I say, in society when women now breastfeed in public. It's become and continues sadly to become an issue. We see it in our public transportations, we see it in places of work, we see it in hotels. Not so long ago, actually, about 2 months ago, one certain restaurant in town, Olive, if I remember it correctly, was on the spotlight because he told a breastfeeding mother that she cannot breastfeed and that she needs to go. So there's this whole debate about breastfeeding in public that is around it. James, I just want to get your thoughts around that before I also come to Gladys.
Yeah, thank you, Zizi. One thing I want to put across is that for sustained close to 7-8 years, the government has been trying very hard, supported with partners, to demystify breastfeeding as primitive. And we realize now as the society and women want to be more sophisticated, breastfeeding was associated with being primitive. And therefore, especially young ladies were feeling shy to breastfeed in public. So there was a lot of campaign around breastfeeding, and if you want to be a proud mom, breastfeeding is the way to go, is modern, is the best thing you can do. So over time, we have been able to diffuse that tension that breastfeeding in public is primitive.
So how do we begin to break that stereotype? Because it's a key problem. It's an actual problem where even we fellow women will tell other women, you know, you cannot breastfeed in public, because what we have seen is that we see the breast as a sexual organ, and at that time it is a channel of food to this baby.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have, because most of these pressures, basically in the assessment and the studies that have been done, come from us men. You want your partner or your wife to look this way, and therefore breastfeeding has been associated with interfering with that figure that men want. And therefore, ladies, in their endeavor to keep men and keep appealing, they wanted to avoid breastfeeding because it's is perceived to interfere with that figure, that good. And therefore, we started by telling men that breastfeeding is modern, is the best that you can give to your baby, because any parent would want a healthy baby, good, bright and good performing in school, and therefore, if that is the norm, if that is the motivator, then we must all work towards it.
Okay, so
so now men, we started breaking that cycle by first of all encouraging men to be part of breastfeeding. Accompany your partners to hospitals, get this information, and government spearheaded production of materials and campaigns sustained, and we started seeing now that pressure going down.
Gladys, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because sadly enough, even it's women to women who tell women to cover up when they're breastfeeding their child. And at that time, what is supposed to be a means of food for this baby, society looks at it as a sexual organ. Hence why it has sparked and continues to spark a lot of debate. So how do we begin to demystify that stereotypes, even amongst ourselves as women?
Yes, we should encourage each other. First of all, let's look at the baby and imagine if you're eating and you're supposed to eat when your head is covered. You can imagine what we do to our babies. We cover them so that the people don't, people don't see the mother's breast, but we forget that the baby also needs that fresh air and needs to have eye contact with the mother. Women should we should have a campaign where we are just telling women, if you're breastfeeding, just get your breast out and breastfeed the baby, because everybody knows that babies are breastfeeding. If you're worried about the breast, the part of the breast you think can be exposed, there's a way you can cover it. And let's encourage each other instead of making people feel like when you're breastfeeding in public, you're exposing your breast.
Shouldn't we also not have policies that perhaps public places, from churches to restaurants to places of work, should have sections, designated sections for breastfeeding, for maternity, actions to be taking place? So where if you're in a restaurant and you need to breastfeed your crying baby, your crying hungry baby, you can go to a room where other women are actually doing that. Should we not push for certain policies like that, where public places advocate, have a safe environment for breastfeeding? Gladys, I'll hear your thoughts, and also get James.
Actually, the bill, there's a bill that was in Parliament that I think we should get moving again, that was focusing on breastfeeding in public. So creating the space, that bill is looking at the spaces, the space for mother to sit comfortably, instead of going to a place, some areas like if you are in, for example, an airport, and you have to breastfeed, you want to sit somewhere, next to you is a toilet, or the only place you can get is where there is a toilet. It's not really nice. So if we can create spaces where women can go and sit and breastfeed. The issue of exposing their breast is when maybe you're moving and you're with people, you should be able to do it without a problem. But again, if you're in a matatu, you need to get a space. The space in a matatu should be enough for you to be able to hold your baby and breastfeed. So that is something that we should push for. Now that we've talked about workplace, the next thing is breastfeeding in the public. So that bill, if it goes through, again, it will add something.
Right. Okay. James, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well, in terms of policies. And the 10 days of maternity leave, I'm told they're actually 14 days, but like we had agreed, they could actually do more to make those 14 days an entire month for the sake of fathers. But I'd love to also hear your thought on that aspect, in terms of perhaps having policies, rules within public places where breastfeeding can be made easy.
Yeah, thank you, Zizi. Just to add one thing.
Right.
young ladies are comfortable exposing their breasts when they have tattoos on their breasts. But then they are uncomfortable to breastfeed. So you see that. So first of all,
he makes a good point.
First of all, we need to demystify that the point that you brought, that breast is a sex organ. That's what makes them expose tattoos on their breast, because they feel that they are meeting that expectation from the society. So and I had started by saying that's what we also need to work with, because we can establish places, yet our ladies are not comfortable to do that. Perception that we also continuously need to address. Let me come to policies, and I think this is quite important. Looking at the public places that we are talking about, right from the banks, for example, when you go to bank, there are these long queues. Even some don't have washrooms for mothers. So those are some of the places that we are talking about. The churches. When you go, for example, to Hulu Park, there are places set aside for mothers who are breastfeeding, to sit and breastfeed and change their babies. So it's timely. In fact, we are late to have established these places, because if we can set aside a smoking zone in Nairobi for people to smoke, how then do we need to overemphasize having places for breastfeeding mothers? You see how important it is. So it's one good thing to have smoking zones, but I think it's even much better to have breastfeeding places.
So when Gladys, when I pitched the idea of the wet nursing, of course I got Gladys' thoughts, and that was a concept that was used probably and worked well for our grandparents then, like a traditional moving milk bank, should I say. But now in this day and age, Gladys, you mentioned that because of diseases, it may not be the most alternative method. But James, I'd also love to hear your thoughts on wet nursing.
Yeah, thank you, Zizi. I stopped by saying that the wet nursing now not being encouraged is because of the requirements that you need to establish before another mother breastfeeds your baby. But that has been made easier, and the concept of human milk banking is noble, because WHO, in its classification on the ways a baby should be fed, the number one, the topmost, is breastfeeding, mother's own milk. When that is not possible for several reasons, the baby could be born, maybe the mother passed on, or it could be a baby abandoned. There's many reasons that could make a baby not access the baby's own mother's milk.
Right.
So the second one is now the donated human milk. That's the second best. And this is now a concept where for you to feed a baby somebody else's milk, there are several safety standards that need to be established. And this is where now we have to talk about the human milk bank. Bank in the sense that mothers can donate milk, that milk is prepared, and then it is stored.
All right. Thank you so much for helping us understand these new terms, and even they're not so new concepts, but helping us really understand and talk more about breastfeeding here in Kenya. Gladys and James are sent in his son. Gladys Mugambe, she's the head of nutrition under the Ministry of Health. James Njiru, he is a representative under Action Against Hunger. This has been Weekend Express. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you at around 11 a.m. for a quick update of stories making headlines at that hour. My name is Zinze Kibiku. Good morning.